Okay, welcome back, everyone. So, as I mentioned on Monday's video and Monday's class, this week we're getting into research paper. So, today you will notice that I did upload the assignment sheet for it. We're going to go over that today. What we'll do is I'll talk through it and everything, and I will also, with this video, I will upload the paper so that you can follow along. I'll make sure that it's close enough so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about, things like that. So bear with me as we go through this. We'll also do a video either today or Friday on the actual structure of the research paper. So keep that in mind. Let's focus on that. And yeah. So first and foremost, you'll notice at the top we have the running head. It says Final Research Paper Guidelines and Rubric. And then, Wheaton 1, that's a hint of things that should be there. We'll talk about that as we get closer. So first thing to note is that the final research paper is worth 300 points. 300 points, just the paper. Your rough draft is worth 50 points. I wanted to make sure that those points were something that'll help boost your grade overall. So, as always, the rough draft is you turn it in on time, you do what I ask you for the rough draft, you get the full 50 points. If you don't do what I asked, you start losing points. If it's late, you lose points, things like that. But if you turn in exactly what I'm asking for on the day it's due, you will get the full 50 points, regardless of how terrible or how great your writing is. Okay? So, please note the due dates. The rough draft is due April 10th. April 10th is technically Good Friday if you are a Catholic. If you are not a Catholic, it's just another Friday that we would have Easter break on. Now, we are still having Easter break. Even though classes are all online, you will not have to log in on the 10th if you don't want to. I'm giving you until the 10th to turn in your rough draft of your paper. Okay? So you can turn it in before then. I encourage you to turn it in before the 10th, but your absolute last day is the 10th at midnight. So that Friday of Easter break, you have to turn it in. Technically, you should be turning it in the 9th, which is that Thursday, or the 8th on that Wednesday. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Actually, let's just go for it right now. On the 8th will be a work day. Actually, most of the rest of the classes, I think, after this week with the videos about the research paper, you have one more lecture video that I will be posting, and that's about the presentation. Actually, we'll have two on presentation. Sorry, I remembered it. One will be going over the assignment sheet. The other one will be talking about how to do this kind of thing. So keep that in mind. We will have two more lectures after the next one. So we'll have 3 left after this one. Okay? So next week, Wednesday, that will be a work day. There will not be any kind of content in the folder other than work day and maybe the rough draft submission box. Okay? So please work on this. Get this done. Most of you already have a lot of this done. That 5-page critical comparative essay, yeah, that's going into that. And again, this week, the week of March 30th through April, 3rd, I'll be grading those papers, okay? So I will be giving you feedback and so that you know what you can and can't use in your final research paper, okay? So be attentive of that stuff, okay? All right, and then the final draft. Notice that the final draft is 9 days later. It's over a week later. I might fudge that number a little bit more. It all depends on issues that arise during this process. I'm keeping the due dates roughly the same as when they were on the syllabus because we've caught up. So the last 2 weeks of class were summed up into this last week, okay? So we're now caught up. We're where we're supposed to be, which is the good news. So we are kind of adjusting a couple things here and there, nothing major. We literally shoved everything from last week and the week before into one whole week. So now we're caught up. The due date should still be the same. If there's some reason that we need extra time, we can manage that. We can talk it through. We can figure this out. Don't panic yet. Okay. So that covers the first things on this page. We haven't even gotten into the actual body yet. So stay with me. We're going to get through this. All right. So you can read, but I'm going to say it anyway as if I was in class. So you've made it this far. Congratulations. Now you have all the tools necessary to complete your final research paper for this course. And that's true. That's why at this point, most of the rest of the classes are going to be you working on your paper. There's not going to be lectures. There's not going to be things like that. I will tell you right now, you will not have any other daily work for this unit. There's no daily work. I just want you to work on your research paper and turn it in. That's it. Okay? You have all the tools. Everything that we've learned so far. So the proposal, you figured out exactly what you wanted to do, how you wanted to do it, and where you're going to put things. You kind of figured that out. Your annotated bibliography, you found your resources. You know how to do the research. You know how to cite them properly. And I also made you, in that remember reflection section, I said, how specifically do you plan on using them in the paper? That's where you get to do it now. The critical comparative essay, like I said, was a mini version of the final paper. I was only allowing you to do 2 full assertions. Now you can have as many as you need for your paper. Now I'm telling you this now, no more than 5. If you have more than 5 assertions, some of them can be sub-assertions and you need to lower them down. But now's where you bring in all of your sources. You figure out how it's all going to work, things like that. So you're bringing everything in. You have the tools. You know how to do a classic argumentative essay. Guess what? That's what this paper is designed with. We talked about it in class, but since we talked about it in class and some of you may not have been there, we will do in the next video lecture, which will be about the structure of this paper. We'll talk about that structure again. So for those of you that were in class and remember, you don't really have to pay attention. We are going to just go over it. It's going to be a short presentation. Okay. So, if you've been following along and you're like, oh God, I already read through this entire thing by the time you got to this point. Oh God. Yeah, we're going through it step by step like we would in class. So, if you're tuning me out, great. Just stay till the end. You can scroll through. I don't really care. Okay. So, first things first, be 8 to 10 full pages of text. That's not including the title page, the references or works cited, or the appendix. Yes, some of you might have an appendix. If you are using charts and graphs and other kind of data, you will need to have an appendix where you put all that information there. I do not want to see charts and graphs in the actual body of your paper. Yes, in some styles that is acceptable, but for our research paper, they should all be in the appendix. They do not count towards your page total, okay? So if you scrolled through this and you ignored it, I'm going to tell you to look back when you turn in your rough draft and you made that mistake. So, 8 to 10 full pages. Your critical comparative essay was 5 full pages. So at bare minimum, you have 3 full pages you have to type. It's not bad. Okay. So as normal, typed 12-point Times New Roman double-space font. That's it. Nothing else. I know a couple of you, there's been issues with Blackboard, and when you submit, it makes the text look different. I will be downloading them just to make sure that the text is right. There is some weird thing with the Blackboard thing. So if you go to preview your own text and it looks weird, but you know you actually did it in 12-point Times New Roman, you're fine. For those of you that are trying to get away with, changing the spacing or the size of periods or spaces or anything like that, I download the document and I automatically preset all of the text to be 12-point Times New Roman double-spaced font to get an accurate layout of how long your paper is. So if you tried any of those tricks, it will be fixed and I will then have an accurate depiction. So make sure that you are making those corrections where needed. Please be aware, if you are using Microsoft Word, anything past 2010, the default will automatically add spacing after paragraphs. Make sure you take that off. It should be no extra spacing after paragraphs. If you're writing an APA, there's a different format because of the section headers, but that's not to worry about spacing-wise. You're fine with that. Okay. This is where I said, you did the 10 sources. Guess what? This paper, bare minimum requirement, at least 6 properly cited sources. This is part of the works cited reference page, but also in text. You have to properly in text and end text your citations, and you need 6 of them minimum. You needed 4 for the critical comparative. You need 2 more. Now, you can go way over that. It does not have to be only 6. You can go over. It just is a matter of you have to have 6 to get the full points for that. Okay? And as always, be clear of any grammatical errors. As I've said in class several times this semester, I give you leeway. At this stage, also because we're now into an online course and not a physical in-person, I will tell you now, I give you 10 different errors that you make before I start taking points off. And 10, I mean, if you spell 10 words wrong completely, you lost all 10 of those. It does not mean one type of thing. If you spell a couple words wrong and you use the wrong comma or you have weird sentence splices, if you do it the same, like in a certain style, I'll count that as 1. But misspelled words are a big one. So I will be counting each misspelled word as 1. If you spell the same word wrong multiple times, I won't count it as more than 1. Okay. So this is worth the largest percentage of your grade, so please take this seriously. This is the paper that if you were kind of struggling between a C and a B, if you do well on this paper and do everything, you'll get the B. If you don't do well, this could even drop you down to a D. Don't do that. Take this seriously. Take the rough draft seriously. That's the only 2 things in this unit, is the rough draft and the final draft. Turn it in on time. Turn in the rough draft, you'll get the points. Turn in the final draft, you'll get the points. You don't want to fail this section, okay? Much like critical comparative essay, you will need to include a history background section. They're the same thing. History/background could be either or. I don't care how you word it. But you will need that section. You will need your intro and conclusion. I don't know why I need to say that. And you will need your support, your body section. As I've said in class, the concession section is not mandatory. That is an optional thing, and some of you I've already spoken to, I think that your concession section should be in your final research paper. So, remember, this is a research paper. I'm looking at some of you because we've had this issue already. Any claims you are making must be supported by research. That means you have to have direct quotes, direct paraphrases, and can cite them and say, yes, I'm making this claim, but here's the proof that it happened. You need that. This is a research paper. You have to have the research. Okay? Additionally, since this is an academic paper, you need to avoid familiar language. This is the I, me, we, us, you, that kind of thing. If you're talking about an author or a group of people and use they, he, him, her, she, whatever, that's fine if referring to the author. But do not use familiar language like, we need to do this, you need to... No. Academic papers avoid that as best as possible. If you're using a personal anecdote in the introduction, that should be the only place I should appear. Okay? Or if you conduct a survey or interview, then you can use I to bring in that you had this conversation. That's it. Okay? All right. Now, here's the rest of the thing. You will be graded on the following, and I'm just going to do a real brief going over this. Your introduction is worth 25 points. This needs to bring your reader in your introduction. You need to establish who your reader is other than me. Don't say that my audience is. That's not the right way to do that. Your thesis statement, which we've talked about several times. Catch the reader's attention. Remember, like bad joke, hook the audience, the hooker. So you need to do that. Please do not include a sentence saying my intended audience is or anything similar to that. I like to believe I've made this assignment sheet idiot-proof, but people always tend to do something wrong even though I said it explicitly, so please read carefully these sections. The background section is 25 points. This should be very similar to your background section of your critical comparative essay, so it's not worth as much. If you are adding to it, great. I'm still going to read through the whole thing, But remember, this is worth 25 points now. So I anticipate most of you will copy and paste the background section and edit based on suggestions from me and the peer review. So I'm not concerned. I'm not reading closely at the background because I've already done that. Your argument, this is the considerable bulk of the paper. This is 100 points. This is the body paragraphs. This is where you're making your claim. This is where if your background and intro takes you to page 3 of 8, a good almost, 4 pages should be your argument. And I don't mean 4 paragraphs, I mean 4 pages. So, this is the considerable bulk. Well, look, I even said that. This is the support section, but with more in it. So what you did in critical comparative, you're adding to it. Include as many sources as you can in this section as it is the bulk. If you are including a concession in your argument, it will appear at the end of this section. Or if it's a direct concession to one of your points, it can be after that point. It depends on your paper and what you're doing, okay? So again, concession is not required, but it will be part of this 100 points, okay? All right, conclusion is 25 points. As mentioned in class, and I have mentioned this before, your conclusion should do more than just restate your thesis and sum up everything you've already said. Make sure you resupport your thesis and point back to some of your argument's points. A good conclusion will leave the reader with a sense of closure. And as always, do not introduce this section with the statement in conclusion. Again, that is incorrect. Do not do it. If you do it, I will take off 5 points immediately of this 25 points. That's not a good start to your conclusion. Okay. Also, please note, up here, I have APA Final Research Paper, MLA, Wheaton, both 2. So, in APA, you will have a running head at the top of every page. Most of you already know this. You will also have page numbers. MLA, you will not have the running head, and you will have your last name and page numbers. I did this so that you know what it's supposed to look like. APA people, please ignore the running head first part on the first page. As you already know, as I've said multiple times, APA 7 no longer includes that phrasing at the beginning of your paper. Okay, so your works cited reference page, 10 points. You get 10 points for having it. Don't screw that up, just have it. You get 10 points for it. So this one and the next 2, citations and MLA APA guidelines, make up a total of 50 points. That's making sure that you've done everything correctly. You get 10 points for having the page, 20 points for making sure that the citations throughout the paper, both in text, how you introduce them, and how they're cited at the end of the paper. All of that goes into this citations piece. You get 20 points for doing it right. Most of you have been doing it right since the annotated bibliography, so no worries about making sure that it's correctly cited. The in-text citation and making sure that you introduce, that's where things are going to get a little weird. Now, MLA APA guidelines. That's where we're talking about this stuff. That's where we're talking about headers and footers. That's where we're talking about all that stuff. If you are following proper MLA and APA guidelines, you will get the 20 points. If you do not include page numbers, if your page numbers are at the bottom of the page, if you do not have your last name in MLA, if you do not have a running head in APA, if you do not have section headers in APA, if you do not have a title page in APA, if you do not have either a title page or the heading in MLA, you will lose points here. This is that catches everything. It's 20 points. They go fast. Make sure that you're not losing out on those points. Okay, 25 points for the technicalities. This is legitimately just everything. We're talking about grammar is correct, sentences flow, sound right, there's no issues, there's no grammatical issues. That's all part of the technicalities. That's, did you also reach the 8 to 10 page that I asked you for? If you went over the 10 page, is it well over 10 pages, or is it just slightly? That kind of thing. So it's all that stuff. That's 25 points. Tone is 25 points. This has been a problem in the past, which is why it's 25 points. You need to remain a professional tone. You are writing a professional academic paper. It should be straight and to the point. It should not be any kind of wiggle room stuff. It should be professional. Okay? If you are professional throughout the paper and it seems like a proper academic paper, you will get the full 25 points here. If you do not, you will lose out on points. All right. And then finally, organization. Surprisingly an important thing. If everything is organized properly and the flow of the paper makes sense, you will get the full 25 points. If you are not following that guideline and it's kind of jumping from one thing to the next, you will not get the full 25 points. Plain and simple. That's all I can say about that. Okay. I've said a lot. I've given you a lot. So I know there's bound to be questions. I know this is a longer video than any of the other ones. We had to go through a lot of information. We had to talk about a bunch of different things. So, that being said, if you have questions, please reach out to me. I know this is a weird situation. I don't like giving you a research paper without seeing you in person, seeing the looks on your faces, knowing if you are confident or if you're completely scared shitless. I like to know how you're doing, okay? So, please, I know we just went through it, but read over it again. Write down any questions you have. I don't care if you have a question on every single thing or you have no questions. I want you to go through it a second time by yourself. Maybe listen to this video again and follow along closer. I don't care. But please, read through it, write down what you need to ask. Any questions you have, any particulars, any specifics, anything that's just randomly connected to this, write it down, okay? Once you have all the questions you could possibly think of for this assignment sheet, send me an email, reach out to me. That way I can at least address some of those issues and we can talk about it, okay? All right. So, again, sorry that was a little bit longer, not totally used to this, but it's where we are and it's what we have. So, again, take some time to look over this and to figure it out. I don't want you just diving right in and saying, I got this, no problem. Because there's a lot of points here, and as you saw, it's very specific on how it breaks down. I don't want you saying, oh, I'm fine, I can, it's a lot of points. There's a lot of points, but there's a lot of places where you can lose points fast. I don't want that to happen, okay? So, make sure that you know what you're doing. As always, please, if you need help with citations, go to the OWL Purdue website. They are updated for the most recent MLA and APA. Just Google search OWL Purdue, Purdue, and then MLA or APA. And that will take you to their page. It'll be the most up-to-date one. You will be able to see what the guidelines are supposed to look like, how the citations are supposed to go, things like that. So if you have any questions, you can do that. If you're looking for just kind of basic breakdown, not a lot has changed. So you can use the back of the book that you have. You can, if you're looking at structure, that's also technically part of the book. It's also on the OWL Purdue site. Make sure you're using those resources. They're there for you. Okay? I will even see if I can do a link to the OWL Purdue main MLA and main APA site, and I'll include that in this folder too, if I can do it. Okay? All right. I'm rooting for you guys. You are the first class that I've had, and probably the first class most anyone has had, where we've, in the middle of semester, had to go online. So I know this is a difficult time. I know this is challenging. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, and I know being home and dealing with an online class is a lot harder than being in class. There's no motivation. Please, I don't want a majority of you to fail because of something stupid like this. You all have the ability. You all have the talent. I've seen it all semester. I believe in all of you. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not saying that because I'm a teacher. I will be honest. I've had classes where there were students that I said, yeah, there's no way they're passing my class. I've seen it. Because there's no motivation. They're not strong writers. All of you have the capabilities. All of you have that ability to write well. You all can pass this class. Okay? Some of you that are doing less than stellar in my class, you can bring your grade up. Work hard. Talk to me. We can make this work. Okay? Okay. I promise, like I said, this is already the longest video that we have for the class. I'm done talking about this. The next video, like I said, we'll be talking about the actual structure. It'll be just going over stuff that we already talked about in class, okay? So if you remember the classical argument structure lecture, that's the word I was looking for. You don't need to watch that video. If you don't remember or you weren't in class for it, the next lecture that video will be available. That will be for that. Okay. And then if I don't see you during that time, look forward next week. I will upload something about the assignment sheet for the presentations, and we'll be talking about what that means. Okay? All right. I'm serious. You all can do this. I believe in you. If you need to talk, I'm always here. I'm not going anywhere. We're all in quarantine. So if you need to talk, I'm here. Okay? You can do it.